Before the massive iron doors of the Morannon, where the air is thick with the reek of ash and the ground is a blasted wasteland of slag, a small army of the West stood in what appeared to be their final hour. They had come to challenge a god, to draw the eye of the Dark Lord away from his own borders, but as they stood before the sheer towers of the Teeth, they found themselves not met with a legion of orcs or a flight of Nazgul, but with a single rider. Out of the shadows of the Black Gate emerged a figure so tall and evil that he seemed to possess a darkness all his own, mounted upon a horse that was more a nightmare of skull and flame than a creature of flesh. This was not a wraith, but a living man. A man who had climbed the hierarchy of Barad-dûr to become the premier lieutenant of the most powerful being in Middle-earth. Welcome to Echoes of Middle-earth, and today we are uncovering the dark history of the most high-ranking mortal in Sauron's service, the Mouth of Sauron. We will explore who this man truly was, the ancient race he claimed as his own, and the sheer cunning required for a human being to gain a seat of authority within the Dark Tower itself. To understand how a mortal could rise so high in the service of Mordor, we must first look at his origins, which are rooted in a group of people known as the Black Númenóreans. In the years of Sauron's first domination during the Second Age, many of the men of Westerness, the Númenóreans, fell into great darkness, while the faithful, led by Elendil, remained true to the Valar and the friendship of the elves. The king's men grew proud and bitter. They hungered for endless life and began to envy the immortality of the Eldar, a seed of resentment that Sauron used to corrupt them utterly. These renegades established their own dwellings in Middle-earth, most notably in the far south at Umbar, where they worshipped Sauron as a god and became enamored of evil knowledge. They were a race that inherited the great stature and long lifespan of the Dunedain, but used their gifts to further the designs of the Shadow. The Mouth of Sauron was a direct descendant of these folk. He entered the service of the Dark Tower when it first rose again, a period when Sauron was beginning to rebuild his power after his long absence following the downfall of Númenor. While orcs provided the bulk of Sauron's military might, and the Nazgul served as his most terrifying commanders, Sauron still had a need for men who possessed the intellectual capacity and administrative skill of the Dunedain. This particular man proved himself through immense cunning. Mordor was a place where strength was often measured in malice, but the Mouth of Sauron offered something more. A sharp, wicked intellect that allowed him to understand the mind of his master in a way few other mortals could. Over the centuries, he grew ever higher in the Lord's favor. He was not merely a messenger, he was a student of great sorcery. Within the walls of Barad-dûr, he learned the dark arts of the Shadow, mastering spells of ruin and deception that allowed him to transcend the normal limits of human capability. It is a testament to the potency of his magic and the endurance of his race that he remained alive and physically robust long after his natural life should have ended. By the time of the War of the Ring, he had been in Sauron's service for a vast span of years, so long that he had even forgotten his own birth name, referring to himself only by his title as the official spokesman for the Eye. His character was described as being more cruel than any orc, a phrase that highlights the particular malice of a human who has voluntarily chosen to reject his own humanity. Unlike orcs, who were bred in mockery of the elves and served largely out of fear, the Mouth of Sauron served out of a shared vision for a world of knowledge, rule, and order under his master's will. He shared Sauron's contempt for the weak peoples of the West, and he viewed himself as the ultimate instrument of that power. The high standing he enjoyed was never more evident than during the embassy at the Black Gate. When the captains of the West arrived to offer parley, it was the Mouth of Sauron who was sent to meet them, representing the full authority of the Dark Tower.
he rode forth with a small company of guards, his hideous skull-masked horse snorting fire, and he looked upon the lords of the West, Aragorn, Gandalf, Éomer, and Imrahil, with a look of supreme arrogance. He did not cower before the sword that was broken or the white radiance of the wizard. Instead, he laughed in their faces, mocking Gandalf as an old graybeard who was ever hatching plots and mischief at a safe distance.
What makes his rise to power truly fascinating is the administrative ambition he harbored. During the negotiations, he laid out the terms for the West's surrender, revealing a terrifying glimpse of what the new power intended for Middle-earth. Sauron's plan involved turning all lands west of the Anduin into tributary regions, where men would be allowed to govern their own affairs only if they helped to rebuild the ruined Isengard. Most importantly, this new administrative hub at Isengard would not be ruled by Saruman, but by a lieutenant more worthy of trust. As he spoke those words, the captains of the West could read his thought. He intended to be that lieutenant, ruling the West as a tyrant while they served him as slaves. This demonstrates that his standing was not just based on sorcerous power, but on his role as the architect of Sauron's geopolitical restructuring. The Mouth of Sauron was also a master of psychological warfare. He understood that the greatest weapon Mordor possessed was not its armies, but the crushing weight of despair. To this end, he brought forth tokens to break the resolve of the captains: the small sword of a hobbit, a gray elven cloak with a leaf-shaped brooch, and a coat of mithril mail. He knew these items belonged to the ring-bearer, and he used them to weave a credible lie that Frodo had been captured and was even then suffering slow torment in the pits of Barad-dûr. He gloated as he watched the faces of the heroes grow gray with fear, relishing his sport as he offered them the delivery of their friend in exchange for total capitulation. However, his standing in Mordor also came with a fundamental weakness: a complete inability to comprehend any motive other than the desire for power. Like his master, the Mouth of Sauron judged all hearts by his own nicety of malice. He believed that because the West had found the ring, they would inevitably try to use it for dominion. He could not fathom a world where someone would seek to destroy such a dainty or to sacrifice themselves for a cause that did not result in their own personal gain. The moment his authority was finally challenged, we see the true nature of his spirit. When Gandalf rejected the terms and took the tokens by force, revealing a white light that shone like a sword, the Mouth of Sauron recoiled in animalistic terror. His arrogance vanished in an instant, replaced by a slavering rage that was to the likeness of some wild beast. Despite his sorcery and his high title, he was still a slave to the same fear that governed the orcs he so despised. He gave a great cry and fled madly back towards the safety of the Morannon, signaling his hidden armies to spring the trap Sauron had prepared. The Mouth of Sauron remains one of the most intriguing figures in the Legendarium because he represents the ultimate shadow of the race of men. He shows us what happens when the high culture and lore of Númenor are stripped of their morality and dedicated entirely to the service of a Dark Lord. He was a man who gained high standing not through noble deeds, but through the perfection of treachery, the learning of sorcery, and a cunning that made him a useful tool for a master who suffered no rival. In the end, he was a living echo of the Black Years, a man who had sold his very name to become the voice of a shadow. Thank you for joining us for this investigation into the dark elite of Mordor here on Echoes of Middle-earth. If you found this exploration of the Mouth of Sauron and the legacy of the Black Númenóreans fascinating, make sure to like and subscribe as we continue to journey through the complex and often terrifying histories of J.R.R. Tolkien's world.
Until the stars shine again on our meeting, may your path be free of the black breath, and your heart stay as resolute as the host that stood before the gate.